Olá a todos, é um enorme prazer estarmos aqui novamente nesse dia muito especial para o IMO Brasil. Eu sou o Edson, um dos consultores da rede IMO do Brasil, e nós temos hoje, nesse episódio muito especial, nós temos a presença do fundador do IMO International, Adrian Bekman, que é um sociólogo holandês que vai estar conosco aqui. Ele está no Brasil nessas 2 semanas por uma série de compromissos, e inclusive se dispôs a gravar conosco hoje mais esse episódio de podcast. Ok. Ao meu lado, nós temos aqui o Lafayette, que é o diretor-geral do Hospital Santa Filomena em Rio Claro, onde a liderança horizontal funciona de uma maneira assim bem estruturada já há muitos anos. E o Lafayette, que eu vou me permitir durante o episódio chamá-lo inclusive de Lafa, que é a maneira como a gente se relaciona, ele vai se apresentar, mas ele também é um dos consultores, um dos participantes da rede IMO. Então, é um enorme prazer estar aqui, Adrian. Lafa, muito obrigado pela sua presença aqui.
É um prazer estar com vocês.
E agora eu vou pedir para o Lafayette se apresentar, e depois dessas palavras a gente inicia toda a nossa fala em inglês, que depois nós vamos ter as legendas em português para que o nosso público e outros públicos possam acessar esta interessantíssima conversa que nós vamos ter aqui com o Adrian. Ok? Lafa, por favor, se apresente.
Bom, acho que você já me apresentou, mas meu nome é Lafayette. Eu trabalho já há uns 25 anos como diretor do Hospital Santa Filomena lá em Rio Claro, onde já faz 10 anos nós estamos implantando esse modelo de gestão baseado em liderança horizontal, com a implantação de UGBs, né? Então é uma experiência bem interessante, onde nós temos uma visão de que cada pessoa que trabalha no hospital, ela é capaz, ou ela exerce um papel de liderança importante dentro da atividade que ela faz e dentro das equipes que ela compõe. Tudo isso para o melhor benefício do nosso cliente, nosso paciente. Além disso, também sou consultor do IMO já há muitos anos, então estamos aqui junto com o Edson e o Adrian, nosso fundador, para essa conversa de hoje.
Ok, muito obrigado. Agora eu vou pedir para o Adrian se apresentar e depois nós iniciamos o nosso bate-papo. Adrian, please, can you introduce yourself for our audience and followers, please?
Yeah, I will do that. So my name is Adrian Bekman. I'm born in Holland, or the Netherlands. I'm now 77 years old, so I have a long history, which started in school. I was a very young student because I'm born in September 4, and then you could enter school 1 year earlier than the other ones, so I'm always the youngest one in many occasions. Then I finished school. I went to study in Rotterdam Erasmus University Sociology and Business Administration, and decided after this period in the 60s of last century, this revolutionary period where we were just trying to find new ways of life and work, that I would like to experience really a big international company, to work there, because we were always against this kind of companies, but I didn't know anything about them. So I went to Shell, knocked on the door, they accepted me, and I started OD work in Shell, 8 years, pioneering, because there was nothing there, no project work, no teamwork, no schooling, no social skills, no leadership. We started these things to make it happen, and I met NPI, the Dutch Pedagogical Institute, founded by Mr. Lievegoed and colleagues. And I started to use their concepts and ways of working, because I found them very effective for the people in the company to start to think more constructively how they're working and what could be done differently and how to cooperate with each other. So NPI, I entered after Shell. I worked there 28 years in different countries with different colleagues. Started IMO in 2005. Next year we have a 20-year celebration with all of us. And this has been an unbelievable adventure, because surprisingly to myself, we are now in 11 countries with more than 50 colleagues, of which many of them are really committed to this impulse and try to make something happen, what we call horizontal leadership. And that's a little bit the history.
Okay, thank you very much. one of the questions I would like to ask you is about the IMO creation. How this idea came up? What your natural impulse, and after that, I wish you to answer about how is your connection with Bernard Lievegoed. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
So I'll start with this idea of IMO. Working in the NPI, we were a foundation, we had an organization, secretaries, offices, and all these kind of things, training programs. When I left the NPI, I decided I want to create a community worldwide. That was the idea. Of people that would really go into companies and work with the people in the companies, like I did from the start in Shell, and not just sit in training rooms. So I decided we create a community of people where we concentrate on the work with the clients. So we move ourselves into the companies of the clients, go with them, like for instance with Lafayette in his hospital. Yes. Mm-hmm. And we work together on the methodology, the way we develop this new style of leadership and this new style of involving people in the development. And that we leave out all kind of management stuff, all kind of organizational stuff, procedures. We have no HR policies, we have no strategy, we have no marketing, we have no selling, we have nothing of the kind. We have no offices, we have no secretaries. But we have a very good process, I think, that worked for 20 years. Building up this international community, developing together methodologies and working together at clients. And that was the idea, and that worked. And so we are not getting into trouble with each other, but we spend all our energy working in a constructive way with the client and with each other. Although we are very different, we share this impulse, and that makes us going already for 20 years.
Okay.
And
today we have some different IMO in different countries, in different cultures. We are in 11 countries today. What difference, what main characteristics do you see that fix IMO as the same impulse in China and Brazil or Norway, Finland, for instance? How is this work for you?
Yeah, let's come back to this earlier question about Lievegoed, my connection to Lievegoed, because it has to do with this.
Okay.
Thing. I met Lievegoed then in the NPI. He was not working anymore in the NPI. He started a free high school then, his third initiative. But we had quite intense meetings with young consultants with Bernard Lievegoed. And he told us all kind of stories about his life, about the profession. He was a medical doctor and a psychiatrist, from how to deal with drug addicts into how to work with CEOs in companies and so on. And he was my teacher, because in between all his stories, he had these little sentences. For instance, if you get a question, don't give an answer. What? If you get a question from a client, don't give an answer, but ask the client how he's dealing with that question. I learned it from him. He had a very effective way of dialoguing with people in the business world, because he dialogued in a way that they were felt empowered to start to deal with these human issues in the company in a new way. And that is something that unites us in Brazil, China, and everywhere. That's a universal level of being, that in the organized world, we all have clients, we all have money, we all have systems. In China, in Brazil, in Italy, in Holland. But we are able in companies to create a new kind of culture than Portuguese culture or Chinese culture or Dutch culture, if there's any Dutch culture anyway. Okay. So that makes it possible that when we do exercises with people or do projects, that it's always based on kind of universal issues that companies are facing. And they bring in their own culture, their own way of doing. We do it in the Brazilian way, here in Brazil, and the Chinese way. But we concentrate on the same issues that are relevant today in modern business world.
Okay. Talking a little bit about entrepreneurial culture. What can you say for young entrepreneurs today, and what challenges and what the main issues they have to deal with to entrepreneur in different ways as the world faces us today in these days?
Yeah, it is one of my favorite themes because when I started in the NPI, one of the first projects that we did was to bring young entrepreneurs, which I met through Triodos Bank, who were financing these young entrepreneurs, and managers of big companies. We brought them together in the National Training Center of Holland to explore what could managers learn from young entrepreneurs and what could young entrepreneurs learn from managers. And that was a very exciting period where we did several times this exercise. And what was quite clear is that young entrepreneurs start with enthusiasm, they have an impulse, they do day and night, they are busy with creating something together, and then after 2 or 3 years they get into trouble because the finances are not correct. The people working with them are getting a little bit frustrated, and how then to get organized. And this effective managers could help them to say, well, how do you deal with money? And how do you deal with structure? And how do you deal with organizing things? But the managers learned from these young entrepreneurs that everything is possible. So they were always thinking in problems and limitations, and government is obstructing this and that. And they say, no, we have learned that even in the law, it doesn't say only what is not possible, but it also creates a space which you can use. And that's what we are doing, and that makes the thing work. So I can recommend young entrepreneurs to find the balance between learning how to organize things in a good way with money and people and so on, but at the same time follow your impulse, whatever people say about it. Find opportunities, empty spaces where you can move in, like this space here.
Yes.
And then you start to notice that you go through a process, and sometimes you need help, and that's why we are there, to help these young entrepreneurs to go through the crisis into the next step. And that works. But follow your impulse, like we did with IMO. Everybody thought it was nonsense, it couldn't work, it was not possible. But it was possible.
Keep it.
Because we just wanted to do it like that.
Okay, very good. We were together yesterday in that meeting with the HR people in Rio Claro city. And you said something that inspires me a lot, despite I have heard you say it in another moments. The phrase is management is for business, leadership is for people. Can you say that, and can you please say something about that, and also could you inspire us with the image in the O of the IMO, the horizontal leadership is one of the themes we carry together, we all carry together. Can you please say something about that, please?
Yeah, let's say very basically, you manage your computer, because you have to learn how to deal with that. That is exactly what management is doing, how to organize things, construct things, use the tools and so on. It's very operational, it's very functional, it's very output-oriented. But that's a certain way of functional behavior, it's a certain way of doing things, and that has arrived worldwide. We have everywhere managers. We were talking in the car, driving here, politics, churches, they're all run by managers. So this whole management culture has taken over the world, how to organize things and get in control. And that has been strengthening every day more and more with laws and procedures, until we are almost sick of it. But it is something totally different than taking care of the people who are doing the jobs are working, and that's leadership. Leadership, you lead people and you lead yourself. You're not leading the computer because you have to use the computer in the way it makes possible. But with persons, you never know exactly what's happening and what is driving people, and what talents they have and what future they could arrive. And leadership, that we have been researching this with dialoguing with many, many leaders like Lafayette and other entrepreneurs who created something out of nothing, one can say. And they always say there's one thing that we all share as a dream, that is that what can we do that the people in the company really take initiatives, take responsibility, try to handle the situation in their own way, in a better way, contribute. That's the dream of a real entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But they struggle how to realize that, because the whole management is obstructing that in a way. People become employees and not entrepreneurs. And that's where horizontal leadership started, that for the future. I think only things can work for people when they start to act as leaders. And leadership in that sense moved from the leader telling you what to do into a process where we, top, middle and bottom, act as leaders together and dialogue. And that was what we did yesterday and what I think they are doing in the hospital.
Yeah.
Lafayette and Adeniers, the leaders and the entrepreneurs, they are not in the top, they are in the middle.
Yes.
Of this community. And,
offering his support for other
yeah, and leading it really.
Yeah.
So it's not just saying, oh, everything is nice, and go, no, this works, let's concentrate on this, and this doesn't work, let's stop with this. And they do it as a couple, and you see the people respect that. They like to follow this kind of leaders because they are part of that process. They're not just followers.
Yeah.
They are co-creating things, and that's the future. And that's happening in Brazil, it's happening in China, it's happening in Holland, in Italy. This is a worldwide development for a new phase in the world that I see, that we're not just institutionalized, carried by church, by business, by politics, but that people have to start to act as leaders for their own lives and do that together with the people that they're really committed to. And that's horizontal leadership.
Yes.
And it can be born in organizations that have trouble dealing with the real issues and have to find new ways in the complexity of life and how to involve the people. That's the question of entrepreneurs, how to involve them, how to make them part, that they bring the best out of themselves so that we are serving the client, that's one. Building an interesting community, that's two. Having people to develop themselves is three. And being profitable, that we create overview, that we can invest in new things, that we can continue our process. These are the four goals that you have to create parallel, and if you do that, you see the one goal supports the other goal.
Okay.
So having people involved is not a mean to a goal to be successful. No, it's a goal of the company to help people to develop themselves. Mm-hmm. Because when you are in the process with the client loves somebody who is really there and is in development than somebody who's sleeping and just a little bit frustrated and fed up with the job.
Okay. Perhaps Lafayette can help us or can tell us about his Lafayette and Adeniers' experience in the hospital in implanting this horizontal leadership, and with your help, with IMO's help. And how can you get IMO? How can you get into IMO as a consultant? Enjoy IMO better. Okay.
Well, first I would like to add something on what Adrian just said, because usually you listen to, okay, you either have to, as a company, you have to look for profits. But when you start talking about people development, usually it's faced like something quite different or unrelated or almost opposite to having profits, for instance. And the way Adrian puts these four objectives of results, of course, for the company, developing the community of people, client-oriented company, and also for each one to have his own development while working at the company. I guess he puts together in a very, not always harmonic, but the four objectives together gives the company a new way of looking at itself, the client, its community, and everything works perfectly fine that way. It's not one or the other, but the four together. And in the hospital, well, hospital is a company that runs 24 hours, 7 days a week. So when I arrived there, I had no experience. I am an agronomist for my studies and an economist, and I was doing consultancy for a non-profit organization when my father invited me to join the hospital. So at first, immediately I realized that I understood nothing about hospital, and if I was going to succeed somehow, I would have to depend upon the people that was working there, because they were running the company actually. The hospital at that time was 60 years old. So for me, it was also clear that while I was serving this being of 60 years old, that has been dealing with its own existence for 60 years, trying to take care of its clients with a very high quality. And from there, my first question was how to involve these people and how together we could manage the hospital as a whole. And that went on for many years, and when we finally, in 1210, we met IMO, and we started to develop this new process of organization development, and trying to really answer this question, how to get people really involved in their working processes. Like, for instance, it was very common for people to complain. Oh, this is not working here, this is not working there. But if you keep complaining, the things will never change. So how can we move from a complaining culture to a initiative culture, meaning that if you have a problem, let's look at the problem. What can you do to help the company or your team solve this problem? And that was our orientation when we started to work with IMO at the hospital, how to help people take initiatives on their own working processes. And that's what we did for a couple of years. And it was very nice to see suddenly people get involved in their own process of work, and we could feel that the management was lighter because people were gradually taking more and more responsibility for what they were doing. And besides that, what was really amazing, that what they were taking more responsibility and they were happier. They were very happy to be listened and to take initiatives. And so the question I had at that time was, what makes people be happy and take more initiative and more responsibility at the same time? And then I realized that as taking initiatives, you put yourself on what you are doing, you give the best qualities you have at the services, you put at the services of your clients, and that makes you can find sense on what you are doing on your company or on your job by doing that. So and that's enlightening experience. So you feel fulfilled because together with your colleagues of work, you are able to put the best of what you have to offer in favor of the others, the clients of the company or the colleagues of your work. I guess that's the movement we are trying to keep alive there.
Is that easy?
Well, as Adrian said, yes, it's easy on one sense, because people take responsibility, take initiatives, and things keep going. But in the real life, you have problems happening all the time. The external situation changes all the time. So what you have is a crew of people very sharp, focusing on what they are doing, and with an increased capacity of facing all these changes around them, and to do their best to try to do their best. It's always a trying, and it's always a learning, because by taking initiatives you are always learning, because you do something that you never did before. It's not a repetition that you are already accustomed to doing. So you try a new thing, and if it works, okay, you keep doing it, but many times it doesn't work, so you have to learn and try again and try again.
Yes, it's a process.
It's a process.
Okay. Adrian, you said before, and I heard you said it many times, the support of the high management, it's very important to do that. As Lafayette is saying to us, it's this process in the hospital has his hands, he put his hands in all the process to do it to work. But saying something about that and saying about the first time you had the idea of horizontal leadership, what can you say about that? What can you say about horizontal leadership and this involvement of all the people in the company, how this creates a true movement to change?
Yeah, I see the top leaders, CEOs or top teams, as the ones who are first of all representing the impulse of this organization that was brought to the organization from the start. So to steer the company always that one stays in contact with what is the real task and challenge for this organization, and not drift away with all kind of problems into areas where things get more complex and you forgot about where you are doing really, where you are standing for. So I've noticed in my long period of work with companies that top management more and more starts to be dragged into this vertical shareholder value type of thing. Pressure with technologies and all these investments and capital and financing and banks and so on. And they forgot about the client. So the professionals were working with the clients and the top was working with banks and everybody else, but they forgot about the one who's really carrying the company. That's the client, because he pays or she pays for the work to be done. So we found out that the top leaders have to make a move and change their language, because they integrate their interest again in what's going to happen with the client. And that is part of the process with the client, is part of not of the vertical dimension of a company, top down and investment and capital and so on, and profit, but it's a horizontal dimension. It's the day-to-day life that is happening between patient and surgeons and patients and nurses and so on. That's a very dynamic, dialogical process. And to understand a thing, how an organization works and what is the status of an organization, you have to look into the client process. What's really happening there? How are we dealing with the client? Are the steps, are the process working with the client or not? Do the professionals get stuck with it? So to open up the door for the top to really get a new interest in what's going on in the client process. And the amazing fact is then that suddenly they start to dialogue differently with managers and with professionals, because they move from sitting upstairs and looking downstairs into the middle of the company, because that's the cross. Verticality, capital, structure, policies and so on, and the horizontal dynamic between client and suppliers and cooperation and professionals and team leaders. And that was, I think, the start of the idea of horizontal leadership, that we have to strengthen in the leadership again the connection to the dynamic of the horizontal movement in an organization, and out of that have a view what kind of vertical structure do we need, or should we change because they are blocking certain things that should be able to happen. Then to that came later then this idea that also Lafayette referred to, that people start to enjoy being part of the leadership. But I noticed, and that was critical, that the top people have all the instruments. They have the figures, they have the free space. Lafayette can say, tomorrow I have to visit the United States, and he's 1 week there to look at the hospitals or whatever. So he has the free space to move and he has the instruments to control, because he told me, for instance, every time he looks at the figures as well, to see are we really in the right way moving, or are the figures showing me that we go wrong. But the people in the organization manage a little bit, but the person have no instruments at all. So then I discovered here in Brazil that they developed this UGB that the people in the teams, the professionals, have themselves a steering instrument in which all the dimensions of the top instruments are integrated. So they think about their mission and core value, they think about their goals, they think about their activities, they have indicators to measure. And out of that they can see what is working well, not working well, and start projects and make little improvements. So they have the same instrument integrated, that for the top is the different instruments that they follow. And suddenly they can stand up as leaders because they have the feeling we are leading our work and not we are just hanging on in our work. So that was a breakthrough, and that's what we are introducing around the world everywhere. To have this combination of horizontal leadership needs these self-steering teams, of autonomous teams. But how to get there? The leadership has to change from vertically management-oriented primarily, and the professionals have to change, just doing the work and leaving the problems to the management. Understand? And this is a very intense transformation that doesn't go one day. It needs a long process over years. But the companies that I've been working with, sometimes we have processes of 20 years. When it starts to be working, then it stays in the company. It's a certain level of leadership. First level is day-to-day routines. Second level is management and professionals or experts solving the problems. Then the third level is we are leading our company to the new phases, to the new challenges together. And that needs a totally different infrastructure. And this self-steering teams, or OGBs, and horizontal leadership for team leaders and department heads goes together, helps the company to make this transformation. And then the vertical gets much stronger in a dialogical way, not just top-down. But the people have to tell the story, and then the top has to say something we have to change in our infrastructure because we are blocking what they are doing with the clients, and that brings us the money. And that when that starts to work, and you can see it in hospital, even big crises caused by governments and so on can be handled in the end, because this force tracks you through the crisis in a certain way. That's not theory anymore, that's practice, observation in all these countries that we are working with companies that this can happen.
If I may add something, because I talked about how the teams were involved in that, but I also want to tell a little bit the change of the role of the managers, because usually manager think that his role is to take care of everything for everybody that's below under them, and command and control. And in this horizontal leadership point of view, this pyramid of hierarchy is kind of opposite, because whoever is in the top is to serve or to help people that's in the bottom to develop themselves and to do their best. So how managers change for having control and command to listening to their teams and help create a very nice process for those teams to develop themselves. So, as Adrian said, to move towards a position where everybody in that team is a leader of himself or of the team. That's very nice.
Very, very nice. Adrian, along your life you have been studying many philosophers and many books, and you have many writes about the human soul. And we believe and we know that horizontal leadership has to do with that. It makes the spirit appears in the human soul. Do you think the horizontal leadership has the capacity to develop the connections between people and heal the society as we see today? Because we have a materialistic view, a very materialistic point of view today in business and our relationships. But in your view, how can this heal this connection and heal society?
Yeah, I think this word healing is very important. Because, like I said, when Lievegoed started, he was a doctor and a psychiatrist. Yes. And in the work that we did with him as young consultants, he explained again and again that he says in the future the real issues will not be outside or only in the world, because that will be complex and chaotic. But the real problem is inside people, that they are struggling how to deal with all these all these complexities and bottlenecks and things that are not working, or problems in the marriage, or problems with the children, or health problems and so on. So he said the real issue is inside of the people, and Lievegoed, that in that sense was a real soul man, that he understood very good what's going on in the soul of people. It's not the spirit, which is the eye, it's not the body, but it is how are things manifesting itself in the way you think and act and do and feel and judge and so on. And he said there it's very important that people can stand up in that complexity, and that's the I appearing in the soul. That's the way we expressed it themselves. And I learned it then very young, because Lievegoed started with an Institute for Handicapped People, young children. And I was in the board of that institute, of all the institutes of Lievegoed in the end. I was responsible, and also in the Zonnehuis. And I learned that they were treating children with handicap, not about the handicap, but about how the child is dealing with the handicap. So they always, in everything, in going to bed and eating and going to school, is the child appealed to in his eye to deal with this handicap. And there I saw miracles. I saw very handicapped children standing up and appearing in many different ways. One little story was that when we had 60 years celebration, I talked to a father of a child that had been in this institute, and he said, I just come from my son, and my son was here when he was young because he's handicapped, but he has developed himself in repairing special Citroën cars. And that became his business. And I just came from my son, and he was working with the car, having to replace something in the engine. And he was working there, and I observed this boy, how consciously and how precise. And then he got it, and then he said, no, it's not good. And he took it out again and put it in a little bit different. Then he said, no, it's fine. And he said, was Zonnehuis. They learned, this child, to do everything with a certain kind of consciousness. And that was so impressive, that this is the work that I like to do, to help people to do their work, their job, in a way with this quality. Okay. And that's the core of leadership. Also for a CEO. CEO can create total chaos in an organization, but they can also make the impulse alive in the community. They have to represent it then, and that's not powering and moving, and which is normally in the action. That's reflecting, it's asking questions, it's taking time, it's stopping certain things and say, let's reflect, what are we doing, why are we doing it? So that we start to learn to do things with a special kind of attention. And that's how I try to form my life then, also in my consultancy, with my family, with my children, to bring in this quality as much as possible. And then you start to see your very weak points. I hate traffic jams. I'm always frustrated when I'm blocked, when things are not moving and not flowing. So you have to start to deal them also with your handicaps. Yeah. But then in this style, not to get too emotional and so on, but to deal with them in a fruitful way. Okay. And that makes sense. That gives a fulfilled life, not a happy life per se, but a fulfilled life. So you have the feeling, my life is not for nothing. And that's what I wish for everybody, to find a way to be able to do this in your circumstances, with your abilities. Yeah. And I've seen that it's possible with handicapped people, with women, with frustrated old people who found suddenly an opening and started to change their life as an inner soul. Yeah. And that's, I think, what is very important in this process that Lafayette described, that people can stand up and that they become part of something, that they can balance all these problems and things that they face in their life, and still saying, no, it makes sense, I have to deal with it, and I'm able to do it. Yeah.
You have many books, and we know you are here in this period to launch the Brazilian edition of Saturn Path. But prior to say something about that, I want to ask you a few details about one have impressed me a lot, is being the pilot of your life. It's a little one. There are 8 chapters. When you propose some exercises after each chapter, and the concept of being the pilot of your life, for me, it sounds like take care of your own biography.
Yeah.
And can you say something about that? And in the sequence about the Saturn Path we are going to launch next Friday on the Antroposófica Society in Brazil.
Yeah. So when I got so older, I more and more was busy with this question of the human soul in the business world, and how to develop this human soul in dialogue with each other. That is part of this Saturn Path. So one thing, flying in the plane to Brazil to work with you, it came this idea that it might be making sense to write a little bit about what are key elements I see in my life and life of others to deal with, to be able to do what I just described, to be able to lead my life in a sensible way. Then I always have the feeling it must be very practical and it must be very spiritual at the same time. So spirit never without matter, matter never without spirit. Yeah. So just spirit and nice is taking you away, and just only practice you deal with. But the secret is to bring these worlds together in your soul and have an intuition. Okay, now I have to move or take this decision or change my job or whatever. Later then I wrote this book about giving sense to your life. It's about the weeks in the year where every week you can exercise a certain quality. So it's all a try, like Goethe said. It's all a try to help to find a way for yourself in dealing. And I think that we have to develop a new culture, a new language, a new way of dealing with the human soul, to help people to become familiar with these two realities, the reflective reality of spiritual happenings and the practical reality of serving the others. And that's not being busy with yourself so much, but serving the others, and at the same time trying to understand a little bit what is working there, what is behind it, what is the steering conviction, or what is the key value, which I learned as a sociologist, that for social development these two sides are very important, to bring them in connection in the business, in the world, in the family. So that inspired me, and that brought this booklet, and then later the other books. And every time it's an exploration, because it's, as I read just in the plane coming here, that in another little book, that writing these things is a kind of schooling of the soul for yourself. So if you write it, then you read it, and then you say, now I start to understand a little bit what I'm writing myself. That's the nice thing of writing, which is it's a hard work, by the way. I had to learn it. I couldn't write at the beginning at all. And when I wrote something, when people were reading, I said, it's instant coffee. You cannot absorb this, It's so full and so condensed that it doesn't taste. So I had to learn how to write in a way that you could take it in and taste it and sense it. And I'm still learning about this.
We are always still learning.
We always, yes. So a never-ending story, but I keep on doing it. Short stories, short articles, short poetry or whatever. To stay in that process of researching archetypal images and so on, but using your practice experience to connect them in a story that others find inspiring, to go their own story. That was also what Lievegoed learned us. Don't follow Lievegoed. But Lievegoed inspired me to start my process, and I like to do it in such a way that you start your process and don't think I have to be Adrian Bekman. No, you have to be Edson, and that's why we're sitting here, and that's why you organize this, and that helps me again. That's a secret.
Very good. How do you see the future of the role of the consultancy?
Yeah, I think that's like this development of the soul into consciousness levels. That goes over a very long time in humanity. There's also development in consultancy. I think consultancy has been, in the beginning, a kind of social familiarity.
Mm-hmm.
So helping entrepreneurs or people to become a little bit more social, or to become a little bit more conscious about administration or finances or whatever. So they were kind of initiated, enlightened consultants that went around in the world and helped people to get a more feeling. That was the start of consultancy. And then it turned out more in kind of expertise. You got experts who have special knowledge and especially influenced by science, so it had to become scientific. Like companies had to become scientific and management had to become scientific, consultants had to be scientific.
Mm-hmm.
So they must always be able to explain in detail why makes sense and why this is working. And that was then transformed in the companies in terms of the operators and the staff. The staff were kind of consultants and the operators were the ones who were doing the business, and then you had the management that had to get the thing a little bit together. But that's not working anymore. That is not working anymore. Everybody is staff and operator and leader and manager, and it's not able anymore to do it in that way strictly.
Mm-hmm.
And that changed consultancy, in my view, that we need a new type of consultancy, what I call leadership consultancy, is not to help people to solve their problems, which makes sense by the experts, but to help people to find the next steps for the development of the company, of the team, and of themselves. And that's a totally different methodology needed to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
The traditional expertise doesn't make people start to act as leaders. They become more and more professionals doing the system, so to say. But this helps them to start to reflect on the thing, to see what's working, what's not working. Can we change something? Having ideas, trying things out, doing experiments, being part of a living community and contributing to something that makes sense, that other people admire. So then they become stand up and say, hey, I'm somebody. Okay. And I am part of something that makes sense. And that leadership consultancy needs a new methodology, and that is what we developed. And that's what's going on now worldwide. And it is based on a long development with Lievegoed and colleagues. This methodology has been step by step developed over 50, almost 70 years now. And a professor in Holland said once to me, I see this as the only long-term consistency development of a methodology for organizational development. So these things have all things interesting in time, and they come and they go, but it stays. And that's why we build on. And that's why we take it on. And now we have this horizontal leadership methodology. And it works for that reason. And as consultants, we are free. We are maybe the only free professionals in the world that can do anything with our clients.
Yeah.
I must give an example. I've been working now over 50 years as a consultant. I never had a written contract with my clients.
Wow.
So please, Mr. Bekman, make an offer. No. We had a meeting, and in the meeting we had a click, and in the click we had a next step, and then we did this next step, and the things make sense, and it continued. I never had a written contract. People cannot believe this. But it is a phenomena for this different kind of consultancy. Experts need contracts. But this is something on a different level. This touches the identity, this touches the value. And I said, when I was a young child, my parents brought me to the church. We didn't have a contract with the church. We just went there and when there comes the bag of money, you put some money in. And understand what I mean? In this level, spiritual soul level, contracts don't work. It needs commitment and a common process where you move in, and then you're part of the leadership. And it's against all the rules for consultants. They should be objective. They should stay out of the problems. Because otherwise they cannot help. And we do exactly the opposite. We move in, we become part of it, we play a role in it, we contribute. But we're not in the operational tensions, because we represent this reflective space, this open space, what you also described, to stop at some moments and think, are we on the right track? That's a reflective part, which has been neglected in business more and more, which I know from the start was there, more, but in a traditional family sense. But now we need new spaces, new areas, new moments where people can think about their work and dialogue on it. And that's what we have been developing over 50 years, step by step. And many of these things like projects, teamwork, dialogue, social skills are normal.
Mm-hmm.
But we are developing something that in 50, maybe 100 years will be normal in organizations, that things work very differently than we are using to do now. That's my prognosis and my dream, of course, my ideal. And
in your very best dreams, when you thought about IMO, would you imagine that we reached 11 countries and counting?
Yeah, it can be 12 countries or 15 countries, or it's more a matter of that this kind of impulse goes through a certain kind of dynamic. So some people start with it. It's based on a very long history, because you can say many of the things that we promote, Aristotle has already told 2,500 years ago, of Plato or whatever. So it's not new, but it has to be renewed. It has to find its new impulse. And that is, with this case, this methodology, it's based on this long tradition, but it needs a new language, a new opening, because the reality is business, is organizations, is systems, is technology, which was quite different than 2,000 years ago. Yeah? So with this reality, we have to re-establish, reopen spaces in the soul of people to be able to make sense themselves and start to understand what they are doing and what's not working and so on. And that happens in the organized life, not anymore so much in the family life only, but very much in the organized spaces where you work. And you can explore new things that you cannot explore at home, so to say. Get new experiences and start to discover yourself in a new way than you're just the son of your father or mother. So I think that's the start of a new era that will take hundreds of years to bring something of this quality for everybody in life, that we start to see again, as we're not going to church anymore and as we're not believing in politics anymore and so on, that these qualities of religion and of art and of science and of philosophy, we have to start to deal themselves with it. And that is my life also, that I'm painting, I'm making music, I make theater performances, I'm composing now music. Why do I do that? Just to explore how this can nourish your soul and keeps you fresh and open. And many people in Holland, for instance, they sing in choirs now, many. And that's the high point of their life then, when they're in the choir and they sing four voices, Mozart or whatever, and they perform. That's this reflective space where they suddenly see that there's something else than just technology and systems and structures and profits.
Very good. Adrian, we are reaching our. It's unfortunately we have time to do any other things, any other commitment appointments today, with you inclusive. But what do you think is the legacy of the horizontal leadership, IMO and Adrian Bekman?
Maybe I cannot express it in this way, that what we are developing together, this methodology and this work with the clients and organizations that are trying this out, I think the legacy is that we are not in the bright light of popularity, in the bright light of successful organizations. Although if I would put IMO in the traditional terms of growth and so on, and turnover, I think we're totally successful. Mm-hmm. But that's not our measurement. Our measurement is something else. And that's what I say, we are not on the light side, we are always a little bit on the dark side. Mm-hmm. Where people are searching and struggling and trying to find ways that help them to exist and that work then out in the light side, without noticing that we have been the originators of that things that are working in the light side. I gave an example. I've worked with a German bank 25 years, and we have created many processes, and I had 4 CEOs, and I was really a very important part of that whole development of that bank in Germany that has been one of the most successful banks because of that. They publish a book about the history of this bank. It's about 400 pages. And in one page, on a small stud, there is Adrian Bekman.
Wow.
Although in a lot of these stories, Adrian Bekman is involved. So when people, like a colleague came from New Zealand and I joined one day this work in this company, and at the end of the day she said to me, "You're doing nothing." "You're doing nothing, what is this?" And then I said, "No, that's right, but I do one thing, that is the whole process that went today is my work." But it's invisible, it's not, the people don't say this, Adrian has, no, we are creating something in the process that I've helped them to start to do. So we do invisible things that make the thing visible work in a different way. So our legacy is that this is invisible, but it will work out, it will start to enter in the culture of organizations, like I have seen NPI work entering in the culture of organizations around the world. And then it becomes open, and then people start to tell the world stories about this that we are not telling anymore. They are telling it. And that's the legacy. We are not famous and we are not well known, but we have to be we are grateful that we have all these chances worldwide to have colleagues and clients that try this out and make this happen. And that's a total satisfaction and fulfillment of my life, and I think of most of the colleagues.
Good. Very good. Thank you very much. I would like to invite you both to say the final words, some final words for our followers, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Well, I can say that horizontal leadership, as Adrian puts, it can be seen as simple as each one having his own eye, his own drive, being present at his work and put at the service of the client. So that's where the magic is, and that's really great to see happening on the practice.
Okay, your final words, please.
Yeah, I think it's an art of life to be present in the time spirit, as we have called it. So very much connected and committed to what's going on in the world, the struggles, the failures, the suffering of people on the one hand, and on the other hand, being part of a process and a community that tries to find ways to deal with these things in a human way. And I can only wish others, entrepreneurs, managers, professionals, team leaders, to see themselves more in this perspective than in the traditional images of what we are being and what you are doing in companies. It's much more than we think we can do and be. And to widen your soul is possible.
Good, very good. Thank you very much for both of you. Okay?
Thank you.
E esse foi o nosso episódio super especial aqui do IMO Cast Brasil. Que vocês nos acompanhem e tenham este episódio como uma verdadeira aula magna sobre inspiração para a liderança horizontal. Muito obrigado. Acompanhe o IMO através do nosso site e nas nossas redes sociais, no Spotify e no YouTube. Muito obrigado. Obrigado, Adrian. Obrigado, Rafael.